This is actually my second attempt doing that, which pisses me off even more. Because I had so many what I thought was good points. I'm an improviser, and that's why it's actually kind of difficult doing that. My other video was hacking. I was gonna say, beautiful day, isn't it? Well, it's cold in my home country, but then again, December? October is almost over, and we're ringing in November with new games and all that stuff. So, what better way to do this than making this video? Having been inspired by another list, but it's of something else completely. I've decided to do something similar of that, even though I wanted to do a special occasion, but as I don't know how to get more subscribers and stuff like that, I will wait a little bit, but I will definitely make that video, I think, next week. Instead, I've dived into something more. As a natural pessimist and sometimes self-proclaimed hypocrite or stuff like that. I don't really consider myself that much of a hypocrite, but I do say some things that doesn't make sense. But then again, I do consider myself an illogical person, because I don't like logic. I have dived into this. One Piece, a manga that people you either love or hate. You get stuck on for life, or you will never ever sail with it again. Or, as I can usually call it, a manga that you worship more than Jesus. Well, please forgive my sins. Or a manga that you sail with until you reach one point where your ship breaks down. For a lot of people, that has happened in recent years, and I cannot deny I am beginning to worry if my sails are gonna break this new arc, because I have huge amount of fears. And if by some chance those better reviewers that I always comment on watch this, then you definitely know what I'm talking about. But alas, but still, for now, I have not yet dropped it, and hopefully I never will. Then again, it's kinda difficult dropping One Piece, because what most drives One Piece isn't just the story, it's the mystery, the action, not to mention the villains, which is practically what this list is about. But it's not a list of my favorite villains, no. Actually, I don't really like villains that much, because villains are insufferable. But there are some villains which you just love to hate. Villains that you may actually have some of your favorite characters with, because they were just that good. But for me, these villains are villains that, as good as they are, and as powerful as some of them are, I hate them. And that's one of the reasons what's got me into One Piece most. Enshiro Oda could create villains that was so insufferable that when they were defeated, you were almost crying. Well, not tears of sadness because of that. No, you were celebrating because that beatdown was just that satisfying. And that is almost what this is about. Although technically not all of these villains have been defeated yet, but I am one of the few people who say one thing, people. A lot of these villains that are not yet defeated on this list will be defeated, because that's just the nature of One Piece. One day, an invincible villain must fall. And that's also one of the rules of Shonen Jump at all. So, after ranting about meaningless stuff, let's get on with the list, shall we? Number 10, Charlotte Brulé. And I have to say, the only female on this list. Is it because Enshiro Oda is bad at writing female characters? I, for one, say no. I don't care if the lady has big boobs or anything else, and that's not because I'm a pervert or anything like that. In fact, I wish I was more like Sanji, another character, way more. But no, it's more of the fact that some female characters have pulled a heel face turn. And there are some people who suggest that the Charlotte family will do that too. But I don't like Charlotte Brulé. For now, she is a villain. And why don't I like her? Well, she is actually, strangely enough, as much as I want to have her mother on this list, I don't feel I can do. I don't like Charlotte Brulé because she's haggy, she's witchy, she's extremely ugly, not to mention the fact that she's as ugly as she is evil. And her gloating to Nami, that really got on my skin. She knows she is the daughter of a very powerful person, and she practically gloats to that to other people, saying like, "You can't touch us. We are immortal." And that's when she was struck down by Nami's lightning attack. Was very satisfying, but I don't think we have seen the last of her. So I don't like her insufferable side because that, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like the villains on these. A lot of these villains, nah, a lot, all of these villains have an insufferable side. Okay, number let's see, 9, NL. Although ranked favorite on many others' list, I don't like Enel. And why don't I like Enel? Well, he's a guy with a god complex. We all have god complex because let's face it, we all want power for our own selfish needs, and I am no exception. If I had power, what would I do with it? Well, just make sure I had a non-bothersome life. But Enel has a very mighty devil fruit, a Logia fruit that's called the Rumble Rumble fruit that allows him to harness lightning. And until Luffy came, that devil fruit could practically be called invincible. Heck, it even allowed him to breathe in space. And I think that's why he was stranded on the moon, unless on some miracle he returns. As a guy of living god complex, and for some reason a Skypian or a Birkin as he actually was, who did not have wings for some odd reason. Was that a side effect of his devil fruit, perhaps? Because we don't know a single thing what those drums came from. His god complex got extremely on my nerves, and especially more when it was turned out that that Luffy. I don't know. I mean, I don't get into the. I got into the manga during the Water 7 and his lobby arc, but what I mean to say is, until what were first time readers' thoughts when they realized it was lightning? Wasn't what were one of their first thoughts? Oh wait, can't Luffy kick this guy's ass? And yes, it could, because rubber is a natural insulator. Although there were some who out said that, well, technically, if lightning is that hot, shouldn't it melt rubber? But technically, it's a devil fruit, so only a little bit scientists doing that. So his arrogance really got on my nerves. And also, as much as he could fight on close combat, it was pretty clear that what was most frightening about Enel was his Logia. And we cannot also forget that although Haki had been widely hinted, heck, it was even hinted during this first or the second chapter, as of yet we did not know that there was a way to hurt these Logias without exploiting their weakness. So that he was for me a very insufferable villain, and a villain that I was very greatly defeated. Although technically he was the only villain, well, many villains got away with it, but it was a villain that sailed away. I wish I'd have suffered so much more. Number 8, Akainu. Also another one who's ranked, who I think many are favorites. So why do I don't like Akainu? Well, because he is the manga perspective. Sorry, I have slur words in my vocabulary. What I'm trying to say, Akainu is a fictional perception or version of every single politician I hate. I hate politics. I really, really do. And people may ask yourself, what, don't you want democracy? And once I said something that may sound a little bit weird, but I once said, as long as the system works, I don't care how it works, But the thing is, we seems to be heading towards dark times in real life. But at the same time, we only want to look after ourselves because that's how we always have lived, and that's how we always want to live. So this is actually pretty fitting that Akainu is a manga version of that. Ruthless, brutal, not to mention having a Logia magma. He is currently on the rival of the Jonko as the most invincible villain ever. But it is clear he is not that invincible. But then again, Aokiji, another guy who had eaten an ice devil fruit, also a Logia, could battle him 10 days. But when he won that duel, that was almost like a perfect version. Almost like, for example, do you know what will happen when I think the wrong person will win an election, you know what I want to do? I want to say, quote, Padme's line. So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. And that's precisely what I felt when I saw that Akeno had become Fleet Admiral during that duel. Because the higher ups wanted Akeno. Why do they want Akeno? Well, because he's ruthless. He hurts first, asks questions never. He worships bad battle damage. He uses murder to justify his justice. Not to mention, he killed Portugas the Ace. But as much as that final thing is what many people really hate about Akeno, I hate him more because of the way he represents every single politician I hate. And his ruthlessness. And I also don't like the fact that he's that invincible. But it's also worth noting that I think there's more to Akeno than meets the eye. Is he really that madman who hides behind justice? Or is he something more? That's the real question, because if you think about it, he knew Luffy was the son of Dragon the Revolutionary. And what I want to know is, how? How does it he didn't know that? And he was also persistent in hurting Luffy. And as much as I do agree with people, I mean, Luffy is a threat to the world, but he's also a person that can change the world. And that seems what the government is most afraid of, and mostly Akeno. So could there be a chance, though, that the only reason why he wanted to kill Luffy is because of a petty grudge? It wouldn't surprise me if he did that, because he didn't talk so good about Garp, even though the rest of the one did, and he knew about dragons. So wouldn't it surprise you if he had lost to these two Monkey D? It is also worth noting. Uh, of course, I forgot! Damn. I had a very good point that was gonna get into it. Damn it. I forgot it. It was something thing I was also gonna say that is very wrong, but it was not because of the way he wanna keep up the justice of this all. But well, let's move on, shall we? Oh, I only wish I could remember what that final one was. Number 7. No, yeah, that's 7. 7. Capone Bish. We have only been introduced to Capone Bish again a very short while, and already I dislike him. And I dislike him more when the fact that many reviewers said he was already getting favorite on their lists. Because how can you like Capone Bish? He's arrogant, he's narcissistic, and he's very mind cunning. He seems like a guy that wouldn't surprise me if Capone Bish is actually stronger than he looks. He seems to hide behind his military, and I hate those kind of people among the most, because when they finally get out in the open and fight, and when then it turns out that they're very, very dangerous, I hate that, because that crushes your hope. And as much as and I said this before, people, I don't like despair, but I cannot shut up about it because I've drowned in it. So I have a feeling Bish is that kind of person. He is strong. He just hides behind people in order for people to underestimate him. Or is he much that of a coward? He is also everything Luffy hates. He doesn't like emotions. But I still find it very weird that he, of all people, got a son. Then again, a lot of other people said it's pretty weird that he even married that kind of lady. But he hadn't had any choice. But it wouldn't surprise me if he only sees that as a means to an end, too. He doesn't really seem to be that much of a loving father. The way he said to his infant son, you need to grow up when you are in that age to become a badass like your father. So yeah, he really seems to be ruthless. Number 6, Captain Kuru. One of the first examples in the One Piece manga of a complete monster. Captain Kuru is intellectual cunning, intellectual arrogant, and intellectual nobody can hurt me. But he's also one of the first villains that Luffy really hated. Because if you think about it, Luffy said a very wise line to him. Don't want a reputation, then don't be a pirate. Which I had to agree with. I mean, I sometimes I can be like Captain Kuro. I mean, I want something and then I don't do it. So then a lot of people may say to me, "Then why did you do it in the first place?" So in a way, I say, but I'm with Luffy on this. I mean, why the hell did you become a pirate if you hated all that chasing? Just because you had such high intelligence? I mean, he was so insufferable. He had cool fighting style with running style and those claw cats, but in the end, he turned out he wasn't that much of a deal, especially in front of Luffy. And he also wanted to kill his own crew members. So yeah, I disliked him, Captain Kuro, because I also despise a smartass. I, for one, I'm not a smart. I definitely know I'm not smart, but I hate a smartass, and that's one of the reasons why I despise Captain Kuro. Number 5, Caesar Clown. Also another one of the favorite people. What I've hated most about Caesar Clown, ironically enough, is the fact that people can't stop asking, is he gonna become a crew member of the Straw Pirates? And I have to say this, people. If he were to become a crew member of the Straw Pirates, I am gonna rant and say, what the hell? While I do know that the fact that a lot of former villains of One Piece became allies, uh, a lot of them in the end turn out not to be so bad. What we have seen of Caesar so far is not a single shred of compassion. Just like Captain Kuro, he is intellectual arrogant, but unlike others, he's also very much a coward. He has a logia, a gas fruit, although it's not as big threat as Enel's lightning. It's very clear we should never underestimate gas. But unlike Enel, who could a little bit only fight hand to hand, Caesar Clown could not. He also delighted himself on experimenting on children in order for to reach his goal. But for me, I mean, don't get. I can say this to people, and you may very well disagree with me. I sometimes don't think that a child is innocent. I really don't. Children are not that innocent anymore. But in this manga, the children he had kidnapped, well, besides maybe Momonosuke, they were very innocent, and did not deserve this kind of treatment from Caesar Clown. It was also the fact that he manipulated all those idiots of that worshipped him like a master. I mean, duh. If someone saves your life on the brink of death, then of course you will worship that guy. That's what loyalty lies. But he had Caesar Clown had no loyalty. It was also pretty insufferable how much he hid behind the bigger names. I mean, did you really think you could do all this and get away with it? So in the end, I hope he will not become an ally of the Strides, and I hope he dies a very horrible, horrific death. But I also what hope most about him is the fact that he get captured by the Navy and taken to Vegapunk, so we can see finally what's the difference between Vegapunk and Caesar Clown. Number 4, Spandam. Okay, Spandam is practically unlike many of these lists. Spandam was the personify of a weak coward, but at the same time, a cowardly villain. You know, those kind of villains that are egoistic and extremely insufferable, but unlike the most villains here, they could not fight back. He may have had a sword and all, but that was the only thing he had. It was frequently lampshaded that he did not have the strength to even fight back. It was also the way he hurt Nico Robin for every single punch and every kick and every kick the dog moment, as it's called, he did on Robin. It was all the more satisfying when Frankie removed his glove and rocket punched him without his cloth on. Oh, you have to admit that was so satisfying! And I have a very big problem that he came back as a member of CP0, and didn't Robin break his back? How the hell can he stand? It's also worth noting that besides being weak. Spondon could take a huge degree of punishment, but then again, that's One Piece. Everyone could take a huge degree of punishment. It's also worth noting that Usopp is many times hinted to be that weak, but he can still take more damage than most people. So all in all, I want to know most, how come Spandam can stand even though his back was broken? Has he replaced his back with a cyborg? It would have surprised me if he had, and that would actually be kind of poetic if you think about it. The two person he despised the most, he became one of them, a cyborg. That would be kind of poetic. But if it turns out he's strong, well, I'm gonna be kind of pissed off. So, number 3, Hoodie Jones. A perfect example of a neo-Nazi racist manga version. I mean, everything from his debut to his ending, there was not a single redeemable picture of Hoodie Jones. You thought he had an excuse, but no, in the end, he was just the only sympathetic thing about Hoodie, kinda, was that he was raised by racists. Well, not he wasn't raised by racists per se, but he was raised by hatred, so to speak. Born in a orphanage place. Those were there gathered frustrated fishermen and mermen who hated humans for all the crimes committed. And so he embraced that, took it to heart, and became twisted. Twisted more than I think any other thing. And he's a perfect example of a neo-Nazi. He decided, and a Ku Klux Klan member. It's worth noting that his true member actually wielded very many moments like that. There's also some who compare him to the New Panther moment. But my point is that there was not a single redeemable thing about him. In a way, he was also insane, but it was also pretty frustrating because he was so stupid, so to speak. I mean, if the Straws hadn't trained the time skip, then I agree they probably would not have stand a single chance against Hoodie Jones and their troop members, which was all the more satisfying when every single Straw member defeated them in one hit. That was very satisfying. But it's also the fact that Hoodie Jones was stupid evil. He thought he could get over there, and he thought he could take over the world just with steroids. I mean, it's clear that maybe he could have killed some of the kings, because even though some kings can fight back, they're not really that strong. But he thought he could become the Pirate King. He thought he could defeat them. I mean, come on! That was pathetic! It was beyond pathetic. And that's why I actually hated him the most. He was only there to prove that Luffy was stronger. And the moment I saw Zoro cut him down, it was the moment I realized, okay, he's a threat, but he's not that much of a threat. And also, I probably didn't review that series at that time, but a known unknown fact, people, I actually suspected, although I threw it away at the beginning, that he was the one that killed Queen Otohime. And that has to be one of the most heartbreaking scenes ever. A madman bragging about that. But the only good thing Hoodie Jones did, that his insanity was shown to the Fisherman Island, and they realized drowning in hatred is not good. Why do we drown in hatred and racism? Ignorance, or just because we don't like hearing other people complain? Maybe both, but still not sweet picture. But that's just why we humankind have become a little bit more corrupted during the ages. Number 2, Don Flamingo. Also someone who's ranked pretty high on a list. I gotta tell you one thing, I did not like Don Flamingo. I knew for a fact that Don Flamingo was powerful, even before he became the main villain. But from the beginning of the Dressrosa arc to the ending of the Dressrosa arc, what I hated most about the arc was the fact that it took a freaking long time before he was defeated. I hated that. And it was also, unlike many villains on this list, we actually dived into his past. Well, we dived into Hoodie Jones passed, but that was not a freedom excuse. That was just insanity. And not to mention, scary. But Don Flamingo, there was so many debates all around the place. It was almost like, are we meant to feel bad for Don Flamingo? Are we not meant to feel bad about Don Flamingo? Oh, he was a victim. Then why is he doing this? So, in the end, I came to a conclusion. No, I don't consider Don Flamingo a victim. I mean, the only thing I consider him is the fact that I consider the people victims. And even the people that tortured his family. I know his brother and his father did not deserve that, but Don Flamingo did. Because the fact that he was also another picture of a twisted child. You have to realize one thing, people. There's nothing scarier and there's nothing more dangerous than an 8-year-old that is twisted. There are no more dangers than that, and those needs to be exterminated. And that's one of the reasons why I hated Don Flamingo. It was, as much as he did the excuse and stuff like that, it was clear that Don Flamingo didn't even care about learning empathy. And it was also the fact that he was so powerful. He was so hyped up every single time, and he became so powerful that I began to say, "Ah, come on, can't he be defeated already?" And he finally got defeated, but it took a freaking ass long time. Was it satisfying? Well, I have to say this. I think the anime scene did a pretty good job defeating him. But I hope he rots in Impel Down, locked away forever. Because for me, Don Flamingo was, up until the introduction of Jack and number 1 here, he was the most twisted villain ever. Because we're now on number 1. It's Vinsmoke Judge. Technically, we should have counted the entire Vinsmoke family, but then we would have counted Riju, the sister, the daughter too. And, the daughter and the sister of the brothers. And although I may still find her questionable, we cannot count her. We could count Vinsmoke Judge's sons, but that doesn't count at all. Let's just say that Ichiji, Niji, and Jonji personify of children and youngsters that have become made twisted. But I'm still adding Vinsmoke Judge because I'm gonna quote Shiso Himashima, or whatever his name was, from Dura Dura. And there he was. From the moment I saw him, I hated him. Because that's the moment I said about Vinsmoke Judge. And what I hated most was the fact that a very well-known reviewer actually dared to say, oh, the Vinsmoke's gonna become allies, because I'm just gonna say it like this. If by some miracle Vinsmoke Judge become an ally, then I'm gonna definitely say, what is wrong with this manga? Every single scene from Sanji's past, from his introduction in his whole flesh, from the fight with Sanji, from everything else. Vinsmoke Judge is the epitome of hate. Technically, Hoodie Jones was that. What I mean by the interpretation of hate is because he was a character that was made to be hated. A villain that we actually cannot like. And that doesn't mean he has to be a bad villain not a good, but as a good, insufferable, hateful villain. Because Uda technically created Judge for us to just agree that, yeah, this is by far the most twisted and hateful villain of One Piece ever. And that's saying a lot. Because technically, until that, Don Flamingo had my list on that. And we're still not even done, people. There's a very high chance that when we get introduced to the next arc, which is probably called the Wano Kuri arc, there's a very high chance that the Shogun on that place is also going to become insufferable. For what we have seen of the hints of the Shogun of Wano Kuri, it wouldn't surprise me if he is a Caligula or a hypocrite and anything more. But I think I'll take that in another theory video. Back on Judge, yeah, Yaji or Judge, as whatever people call him. is there's nothing redeemable about him. And it's also the fact that he despises empathy. And he threw away Sanji, a character that is a favorite of many, mine included, although I am very, very, very worried he's not going to become that much longer. But it's also... I dislike the fact that I heard he was a comrade of Vegapunk, because so far we don't know anything about Vegapunk. But it wouldn't surprise me if he sold out his team just so that he could escape. And he holds the key of life. In fact, I think there's a very high chance that once Chopper meets Vinsmoke Judge, Chopper is gonna hate him too, because Chopper hates doctors that doesn't value life. And it's clear Judge only values the life of his family, besides Sanji. All the rest is just toys and creations for him. And that is something I think Chopper is not gonna forgive. He's probably gonna say, be it as it is create, a life is a life! Which is he not gonna agree on. So yeah, Vinsmoke Judge, a real insufferable, hateful, and extremely despicable villain, and we're not even introduced to his enemy counterpart yet, as of yet at least. So what kind of voice is he gonna have? Probably a very deep one. So the only reason why I'm doubting the Totland Whole Cake Island arc is because it's just like Don Flamingo, it's taking a freaking ass long time before he suffers karma. Because I say this again, I repeat myself, he must suffer karma. He cannot be allowed to escape, unlike NL. He must be broken. There's only one satisfying defeat for a guy called Judge, and that is if Sanji defeats him. Because why is that going to be very satisfying? Because of these reasons. First, he labeled Sanji a failure, my greatest failure. If you think about it, there's nothing more humiliating for a scientist like that in order to be defeated by the one creation he labeled a failure. Second of all, he's prideful, arrogant, and extremely noble, twisted, which means that he needs to be defeated by someone who's so kind, like Sanji. Third of all, he doesn't have emotion enhancements, but he does have technology. If Sanji defeats him with just his skill and his Diable Jambe, even though that may be some enhancements, that's all the more satisfying. It's also satisfying if Sanji defeats him because, see, he rejected Sanji for everything he was. So in the end, that karma came back to bite him. And finally, it will be good if Sanji defeats him, because that will be the only way this arc will be resolved in a good way. That's my most 10 hated characters list, and you're probably wondering, why isn't the world novels on this list? And people. Don't get me wrong, I hate the world novels. Let's just call the world novels as 0, okay? The bonus points, but they are a group, not one character as of yet. But yeah, I hate the world novels too. In people that think they're untouchable are the people that are the worst, just like all the rest. This was my list of my most insufferable and hated villains list. And I still don't remember what I was going to say about Akeno. It was something very important. I think that had something to do with his politician, or the fact that I think it was something to do with his arrogance also. When I heard at the beginning of the second half of the manga, when he moved to the New World in order to challenge Junko, I could almost have guessed that was Akeno's motto. The fact that he challenged Whitebeard so arrogantly seems to hint that he considers all pirates enemies, and he does. But does he really think he has the gall to challenge the Junko? It's also his world military draft. How did that? I want to know more about that. What did he do in order to get those powerful people? It wouldn't surprise me if it was, let's kill all people. And finally, it's also the hint that, is he related to Julie Bonnie? Who knows? Give me your thoughts, if you have any, about my opinions of the hated one.